worth anything. So anyway, I just was reminiscing on the old days when, Ruth Black was there. We did e-college. We did all that development, course development. And she had so much faith in us. And I'm sure many times I developed things that, really weren't up to snuff. But hey, I just kept going. And I think building on that experience and getting all that feedback from students, whether it's positive or negative, but I think that did pave the way. And then the whole business of going blended. I remember John, we had a wonderful time at Walnut Creek trying to talk all the adjuncts into accepting the ideal model and trying to convince them that it's the best of both worlds. We didn't exactly probably succeed, but hey, they got their fill of us and they did it. And some of them did it very successfully, and I think even surprised themselves. So I figure what we did is we broke down all the old guard and, and basically made them come along and join us. So.
We never could have done that if we had a tenured faculty that we had to deal with. Like the whole, when Ruth had to take on the whole Cal State system that was unionized,
right.
She was dead in the water. And I felt so sorry for her. Even when the chancellor of the whole system elevated her, she couldn't do anything.
Right. Well, that's one reason why I liked working at Chapman, Brandman's, whatever, UMass Global, all of those places, is because you had that freedom to be creative and try new things. And, it's just, they gave you the room to do that. And with my passion toward the arts and education, but just I got to do things I should never have been doing probably, but I got them. And I remember when I worked with you and you assured me that I could write that art class and that you would put me in touch with your adjunct, your art adjunct. And then Auspicia came along and, and I started to feel like I had a good course, and it turned out to be my favorite class to teach. So it was an opportunity I don't think you get at some universities. So
crossing departments like we did at Penn State, impossible. I wanted to teach an education course. They wouldn't let me.
Right. Well, and at Chapman, they wouldn't let me do anything in the arts or humanities.
A tenured faculty with departmental.
Right.
They got reimbursement based on the credit hours in their class rubrics.
Right. So it was wonderful to have that freedom to be creative.
Well, and sometimes it depended on the campus. When I started in '86, I spent my first year teaching psychology. The second year, I was in management and leadership teaching. So I mean, and that's before the Orange campus decided they needed to perhaps take control of things. So
yes, the Orange campus did like to do that, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah. They did. But it was good while it lasted. I don't know. I think all the transitions we went through, it still left for a very satisfying professional life.
Oh, absolutely.
I joke with people, I say, it looks like I worked for 3 different universities, but it was really the same one. I just changed names. So my resume looks really expansive.
Yeah. I remember when WASC came in and we shifted from a regional organization to a discipline-based one. And where the first time they had interviewed me, I was the Northern Regional Dean, and the next time they came in, I was the acting Dean of Arts and Sciences. Same people interviewing me, and they're going, who are you? Same guy.
Well, one other thing I want to say, one more thing about John, all his musical creativity and I have his haiku book right here, and I just am so impressed with your creativity and expression. And I always thought you were crazy when you named that one class Human Expression, the performing arts class, but I really got into that concept, and I really do. I don't know if you can see, I think
that is my book. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's your book.
All right, there it is.
I have my own personal signed copy of that book.
Oh, I have
my
it
books-
signed.
on my
Yeah.
bookshelf. Signed by the author. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh,
Well, I'll build on what Carla said that, John, you were one of the original designers, you, Carla, and I don't even know who else of the original BA Liberal Studies program. Then
Well,
you were
you.
part of the WASC redesign of the BA Liberal Studies, and you were a great caretaker, mentor, nurturer of that program. And I've enjoyed that collaboration with you over the years and across schools, which, like you said, it was a rarity. And I don't know a lot of other places where you could do what we did. And I also want to thank you for being such a great colleague, because like many of the people on this call, we were all here back in the beginning days of whatever you want to call our university, and went through many changes together. And we were kind of the last remaining members. And so we have a lot in common and a lot we've gone through, and it's nice to have you part of that group. And then last, one of the things I love about John, and as you mentioned, you've got some plays coming out, you've got some musicals. I mean, we always knew what creative pursuits you were in the midst of, and it was really fun to hear about that part of your life too. So you get to enjoy much more of that now, and look forward to hearing all about your new endeavors.
Thanks, Kathy. And I always thought you actually ran the School of Education, which you probably did, actually, knowing you.
Behind the scenes, maybe a little bit, but
No, she didn't.
A little bit.
yeah.
Hey, I've
front.
seen your accrediting reports, Kathy. And did you know that I wrote the liberal studies one for the state 6 months after I was hired for all of Chapman? Because the person at Chapman that was running liberal studies program, not that phys ed's not a discipline, was totally incapable of doing it. And so that was my baptism, both to California and to Chapman and to us and to whatever. So I was deeply involved in what we all did for education. And you and Carl are just the greatest people I've ever worked with, other than Melanie and Ned and David and Michael. Along with,
there we go.
along with them. Yeah.
Well, Melanie, maybe we can hear from Ellen before we
Sure.
forget. We don't want to leave Ellen out.
No. So Ellen wanted me to read this to you, John. John and I started at Chapman University College the same year, 2002, and we share a delightful 20-year history. I have many wonderful memories of collaborating with my talented friend, but the one I wish to share is about my work as a student. From 2004 to 2008, I was a doctoral student. I did not want to be one of those PhD students who belabored over their dissertation topic and dragged out their schooling, and I think that's very Ellen. I wanted to pick a topic and get it done. So I chose distance learning, which was still rather young. After digging a bit, I decided to focus on critical thinking skills and compare students taking face-to-face classes versus online classes. At the time, we had few courses offered in both modalities. We had a few courses offered in both modalities that also had assignments that could easily fit research regarding critical thinking. Guess what was a good fit? John's LBSU 300. John kindly helped me coordinate with all of the instructors, and I got fabulous data. He was incredibly supportive and engaged, and yes, he's in the acknowledgements of my dissertation. Without John, it would have been much harder to achieve my goals and eventually get to do what I do now. Thank you, John. Wishing you the best always, Ellen.
Oh, that's great.
Nice.
And Ned has carried that on in 304, and you have in 302 that split up. And to me, because I'd been a dean of continuing ed from a liberal arts college prior, and we had a lot of people transferring into that liberal arts college who went to community college, they never really had a liberal arts foundation. They were just, finishing off. That's when I got the idea that it was required for anybody who finally got through us, whether they had 90 credits coming in or not, that they got a sense of what the liberal arts really were. And you guys have really carried that on so beautifully. I appreciate that more than anything.
You know, John, my son is a student. He's studying mathematics at Temple University.
Hmm.
And he complains
Right.
because he would love to have something like these two courses. He complains that he doesn't get enough of the liberal arts. And I think to myself, well, you know, you did something right with that course. You really did see a need. And it's a need that I think students still have today in many institutions. So I thought I'd mention that because when I tell him, well, we have a course that does this, he says, I wish we had it at Temple. Because unfortunately, the statistics courses that he takes runs through the, and I say unfortunately because it's not his interest, through the business program. But he has other interests, like, for example, abstract mathematics, things like that, that would involve other things like philosophy or even history. So I think that that's a tribute really to you and your vision with regards to education and your love of the liberal arts.
You know, he could take those classes and transfer them into Temple.
Yeah, no, he's getting
I'm
creative.
just saying, I'm not that
he's
I'm
also-
drumming up business or anything, but
Well, he's going to take a study abroad next year in Rome,
oh
where he'll
wow,
be taking a bunch of. He's going to start in Rome, and then Lord knows
Okay.
where he'll end up. It'll be all summer.
Right.
So
I'm sure he got it all from you anyway, Ned.
I don't know.
Overhearing you on the phone.
I'd like to think so, but then he's studying mathematics. I'm like, I'm having doubts about things, but I can't bring him up here today.
Is that doubt of paternity? Because
I didn't.
I have a son who's
I can say no more.
I have a son who's a mechanical engineer. And I go, what?
Yeah, right. So you understand me.
Where'd that come from?
I wanted to just add a couple. I just wanted to say, John, that I'm really going to miss you. You hired me, you mentored me, you provided guidance to many of us throughout the years. When I first became an associate dean, you gave me some sound advice that I still benefit from to this day. And some of it was colorful, so I'm not going to say what it was you exactly said. But
David has a non-disclosure
oh, okay, good.
with me as well.
On a few occasions, when issues came up regarding our courses and our programs, we turned to you for a way to respond and defend what we had created or were trying to create at Brandman. And your compassionate approach to teaching and your deep respect for our students helped shape what we once referred to as the culture of Brandman. So I will miss knowing you're in the background, keeping an eye on things. And to paraphrase a poem I once read, I'm not sure what I will do when the old carpenter planing window sash is not there. So thanks for everything, John.
So you're plagiarizing me again.
I'm not the only one who's read that poetry book.
Okay. Thank you. Beautifully said, Ned. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
All right. Would anybody else like to go?
I'll step in if I may. So we've talked in depth here about John's contributions to the university from an academic perspective. I'd like to go on a different walk here and talk about John's strong support when we were forming our vision of who we are as University College, and going toe-to-toe, toe-to-nose and toe-to-toe with administration regarding the faculty handbook. As the chair of FPC at that time, I was in every meeting that we had when John faced off with Karen Graham, who Karen, I certainly appreciated all that she did for us. I felt that there was a part of the necessity for faculty support. And from John's background with Pennsylvania and other institutions, he brought into that meeting different eyes in terms of how administration, and even though John was an administrator at that time, he was still a friend of faculty. And so, so during those meetings, John was able to bring forth a different facet of view regarding how administration really should look at faculty in terms of that handbook. So, so in the long run, John's ideas became part of the handbook as we redesigned that. Do you remember any of that, John?
No, this is the room I was not in. As
you were there. You were there.
I'm the Aaron Burr in that.
You were there, and not necessarily, because you had to walk. And I watched this closely because I saw myself at some point in time being part of administration, but not at that time. And you had to walk a very narrow walk and not upset administration, but also not upset faculty, but also help a win-win. And there are many parts of that handbook, the red book, as you called it. Yeah. You're the one that named
that's
it.
my Maoist background, actually.
Well, and that was to have been expected from you. But anyway, so that I think that turned out very well. And the downside of it, not from your input, the downside of it came from the Board of Regents with Chapman, who decided that it was they that wrote that book. And in the back of the original book, printed in 2002, maybe. None of the names of the faculty and administrators who worked on that task are listed, which is a shame. And Kathy's nodding her head, so I think you have some memory of that. I'm not sure of others, but anyway, it really has proven to be a very strong document from the input of everybody, but including the voice of John. And I think that with that not knowing that background, the younger group who has come to the university after that time developing that handbook wouldn't understand or appreciate the work that John did. So John, I thank you personally for that. The other thing that I appreciate, John, is that he switches times from century to century. So when I think of John running around his house, I think of him dressed as a tutor, not a teaching tutor, but a tutor from the 14th century, 15th century,
16th
and 16th century.
Yeah.
And with the feather flower out of his hat and his long robes. And then I see him swishing into a room and coming out again. And here he is in Victorian garb. And then he goes into another room and comes out as Basil Rathbone. So that's how I envision John running around the house. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but at least in his head.
Well, last year I rewrote The Merchant of Venice, so
yes.
I guess I'm that. That's not a joke. I really did.
So.
Too funny.
Thank you, Michael.
Well,
and
thank you, John.
Yeah, no, you guys did a great job, and you just stepped up. You're all born leaders, and you just did your job.
I don't want to forget Kathy's contributions to FPC.
I was flashing back to FPC when you were talking handbooks and faculty and stuff.
So flashback. Right. So you're still traumatized, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you'll get PTSD payment for it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that governance did not exist at Penn State at that level.
No, we did, I think with a lot of good support from strong people who recognize that, that faculty had in this arena with how we were developing as an institution. It was necessary to have faculty, strong faculty. Yeah.
And we knew adult learning, not that Department of Psychology at Chapman.
Oh,
they didn't have a clue.
no.
You know that better than I do.
I know
But
that.
that's what we stood for, and quite honestly, and did draw the little org chart that supported what you guys delivered.
Well, well, but also the training that we had, that was super important in that we just didn't talk about, well, we now teach adults. We had really ground up. We had to learn what that meant, and how to apply that, and how to integrate all of that into our coursework. And I'm sure we all remember from our different programs, in-depth discussions for a long time regarding how that looks, how to conceptualize it, and how to put it into a curriculum, and then how to operationalize it, and then how to measure it over time.
Right. So, well, that's where we have to go back to Ruth Black, and I'm glad Carla brought her in. And that's why she lost her position there, because she would tell us who was worthy or not to teach those classes. And that's unprecedented, and soon wasn't. But again, that training became a whole institution in the organization that sometimes chafed me, the CII we're talking about, chafed me a little bit, but they always made my work better.
Well,
so there it is.
Yep, there it is. Well, thanks again, John.
Thank you, Michael.
Oh, I think David or Mike.
Sure, I'll go. I can't say much because I have signed an NDA.
Wise.
But yeah, I met John in Walnut Creek. I joined Chapman University College as an adjunct in 2008, and then I came on full time in 2010, just as we were switching over to Brandman. And as luck would have it, John and I were, or I guess I was assigned into John's office, and it was a huge room. It wasn't really, was it a classroom, John?
It could have been.
Yeah.
It's huge. Right.
It was huge. And John was on one side of the room and I was on the other. And John just became, the greatest mentor ever. We would just have so many wonderful conversations. John had all this insight into the university, but our conversations would take all kinds of different routes. I remember I'd walk in there into the office and I saw the light on, be like, okay, well, it's just going to be John and David talking for the next 3 hours. No work getting done.
Yeah.
But the conversations we had were so insightful. John had such insight. I was very, pretty new at the time. And John had all this insight into why, I'd say, why is this? And why is that? And John had, all these answers, which really, really helped me. John, always, we talked about his plays.
You were in one of my plays, actually.
Yeah, well,
stage reading.
Yeah, I was actually in one of the plays.
Was you Thomas Paine, I think?
I got to read.
No, seriously.
I got to read one character, and with professional actors, which was just amazing. I was just like totally out of my league. Like, here's this criminal justice guy, legal studies.
But you also were one of the few people in the audience that was laughing at my jokes. So.
Well, then that was
There
later.
you go.
That was later.
Then they performed it. They did a reading in San Francisco where,
Right.
thankfully, I got to sit in the audience rather than read. And it was just great. John, was my friend. He met my kids. We went to a baseball game. I went to John's apartment, and as you probably could imagine, all John's neighbors were this very eclectic group of people. And I remember you said to me, John, yeah, I like connecting different people, that come from different, fields, just different lives together. And you certainly did. So I really appreciated you always, John, your friendship, your insights, everything. And I'm going to miss you, but like you said, you won't be far. And hopefully you will be back, with us in short order. So thank you.
Thanks, David. You were fun and still are.
All right.
Great. Melanie, may I chime in?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, John, it's a really, really big loss that we're losing you. And a couple of things. During the last 20 years, maybe longer, we all know there's been a war on the liberal arts in America. And we've seen this. It's in the news, and it comes from both sides. I mean, even people questioning the value of liberal arts. And we've seen our university really transition from what was once this extension of a liberal arts college into meet you where you are now, and come here and you're going to make more money, and we're going to be much more career focused, et cetera, et cetera. And for that reason, I was always extremely glad that we had you on our faculty, that students who ordinarily wouldn't be exposed to a lot of these amazing writers and to be able to be exposed to you, your brilliance, and everything that you brought to the classroom. It was such a significant and vital role. And also, I'm always grateful for you as a course developer, because I taught for years the COM 315 course that you developed, and it was just an incredible course. And you could tell that everything you did, you really poured your heart into. And that was evident in COM 315 and in all of the interactions that I had with you. We're really lucky to have had you for all the time that we did. So we're going to miss you, John.
Thanks, Mike. And I want to, by the way, you have a big section in that intercultural communication class that actually comes right out of the work that you've done. And Lotta Murdy also raised my consciousness about intersectionality, which became a major unit in the class. So the ability that we had to work together and to actually use material from each other was something that done to me was unprecedented in all of my prior work. And Mike, the substance in my class, it was largely yours and Lotta. I mean, intercultural communication. I traveled all over the world, but mostly it was the art museums in Kyoto. Okay. And I'd never been to a tea ceremony. So thank you, Mike. I mean, yeah, I think there's a 40-minute video in COMU 315 that is you and Lotta in a dialogue.
Yeah, thank you, John.
All right. Well, I'm a writer, so I wrote mine down.
That's what I would have done.
And I'm just so grateful to have had the opportunity to work with you, John. First of all, you hired me. You were on the hiring committee, so thank you for that. And I just wanted to express my I'm just going to read it. Heartfelt gratitude for all the work you've done making First Brandman University and then UMass Global a place where I was I was actually excited to work. You know, the place that I came from had a kind of a toxic environment, which was why I was looking to make a move. And you were a big part of making this a welcoming culture, one that, you know, was both innovative, right, and traditional, just like the motto. And your absence is going, because of that, I think your absence is really going to be deeply felt by those of us who've had the privilege to work with you. It's not just all of the things you've done academically, it's the way you help build the culture and the connections, like David said, between people who normally maybe wouldn't work together. And I'm sad to kind of see some of the walls going up now as some of the departments are getting bigger, right? And we don't have necessarily as much intercommunication as we might once have had, but it's still there. It's still at the core of what we are and what we do. You and I have survived countless discussions and brainstorming sessions and like a million changes that were dropped on us at the very last minute. When we had adjuncts go MIA, you were always willing to step in and complete the course, so the student's experience was relatively seamless. Countless students have discovered an enthusiasm for literature and arts because of you. And I think some of our faculty have as well. Many instructors have become better teachers because of your mentoring. And we all know that that liberal arts course foundation, the liberal arts core foundation was your idea, one you had to fight for, and it remains a cornerstone of our curriculum. We're going to fight to keep it. But beyond your professional achievements here at the university, it was your genuine kindness, your willingness to support others that we're really going to remember, I think. It's your mentorship and your friendship. You've always been ready to lend a helping hand or to offer guidance to those of us who request it. Sometimes when we don't request it, but we need it.
Right.
And as you embark on this new chapter, may your path be filled with joy and creative fulfillment. We look forward to hearing about your new plays, your new endeavors, and just please know that you leave behind a team of colleagues who are better for having known you. And we will look forward to working with you again.
Thank you, Melanie. And very good. I vividly remember a phone call that I made to you before you decided to take the job, because Melanie was leaving a tenured position, probably making more money even at that point for our rocking ship as we're out in the bay about ready to go across the Atlantic Ocean and see if the world was flat or round. Maybe it's a little too hyperbole. But I remember that conversation vividly. And what I was trying to sell is trust. Trust me. And then I think I said, which is somewhat ironic, since the new chancellor felt I was too expensive, that of all the people that I had seen let go, there wasn't anyone that I disagreed about. And that I'd been at other institutions where, in fact, they were let go for political reasons, in the English department, even at Penn State, which we both share, by the way. We're both from that Penn State English department. So we have a lot of commonality. But I said, in all the time I had been there, I trusted all those administrative decisions finally, even though I was not a direct part of that, but just observing it, and that I trusted in the institution. And I still pray that that continues. And that's at some level between that and artificial intelligence is one reason I'm kind of glad to be not out of it, but a parallel with it at this point. I still have the highest respect for what we do. And I think University of Massachusetts did make the best choice. I mean, we were one of 200 or so, I don't know who had followed that they considered taking in. And given the by the way, I was a dean in Massachusetts, and you talk about a political world. I also worked for the School of Education and teacher accreditation in Massachusetts, which is one of the things I brought over with me. But that UMass would take us in, that it is such a kind of reputation, New England-y kind of institution, says the most about what we built, and that kind of coming from Penn State and then back to a UMass, I really appreciated the fact that we got there and that we were the chosen. And now we have to keep going. But anyway, thank you for Melanie, thank you for being persuaded that it was the best choice for you. And I know your daughter, and I use that wonderful essay you wrote about homeschooling at the end of liberal studies. What is it? 250. Yeah. That's the end of the course. And you convinced a lot of people about the validity of homeschool alternative because of your essay, and it sits right there. It is the culmination of liberal studies 250. So thank you for the material. You guys have given me such great stuff. So it's kind of easy to be associated with y'all. That's my Texas root. That was my one advice to David, though, when Bullock came in. Usually my answer when David would say, "Why is he doing that?" And I said, "Because he's from Texas."
Exactly.
And I'd unpack that, and he'd go, "Oh, I get it now."
Yep.
And David had a lot of work with Charles. I know you were in his office frequently, I think.
Early
Weren't
on,
you, David?
Early on, here and there.
Yeah, early. Well, the whole criminal justice thing.
Yeah.
You came in and they said, "We'll let you redesign these two programs, undergraduate and graduate." There you go. Go ahead. Thank you all.
All right.
Okay.
Just about at the top of the hour. So I just wanted to thank John so much for coming, and I loved all of these memories. I learned some things. So that was wonderful.
Me too.
Thank all of you for coming.
I brought my own glass to toast you, John.
Yes.
This happy
Thank you.
retirement.
Toast.
Thank you.
Cheers, John.
Yeah, and Melanie sent me something that's still on the way.
Yeah,
which
it's still on the way. Oh, I was hoping you'd have it today. Sorry.
No, I'll definitely take a picture of it and send you.
Thank you.
My imbibement, if that's a word.
Yes.
Is it? My imbibement. Thank you so much.
It's from,
Thank you for inviting me, Manoli.
I'm not sending alcohol as the dean. That was just me.
Right. Yeah,
well, enjoy your retirement, John. You earned it, and I know you're going to fill it with fun things.
Well, thank you all for showing up, and you were. I mean, I'm so glad to see all your faces, and you're all feel so animated that that makes me feel animated too. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.